Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second episode of our digital transformation series. It's just gone 9 o'clock and we're set to start and begin today's session. But before I do, I just kind of wanted to get everyone a little bit talking and a little bit comfortable with Zoom. So we're very happy to have you online. And I want us to use the chat quite a bit this morning, as well as the Q&A. We're going to be doing questions and answers for our presenters during their presentations, and then we'll do the questions after their presentation before moving on to the next speaker. So let's just get everyone comfortable with the technology in front of them, and while we're getting everyone to join. So in the chat, if you launch your chat at the bottom of your Zoom pane, you will see there's an option to chat, and you can choose to reply to all panelists, which is the default, or all panelists and attendees. I would like everyone to please select all panelists and attendees, and just quickly let me know where you're at. Are you in Johannesburg? Are you in Cape Town? I know we have a lot of our Africa attendees as well, so maybe you're in Kenya. Oh, so I get hello from Chile, Joburg. Yep, my neighbor, I'm also Chile in Joburg. From Fourways, Cape Town, Lenasia, great. Midrand, windy Cape Town. Cape Town, yes, definitely window. Yeah, well, there we go. Nairobi, Kenya, Jumbo. North Riding, Josie, fantastic. Durban, loving it, guys. Chile, Durbs, below 22. Brr. Yeah, that's Chile for Durban. Benoni with no power. Oh, shucks, sorry about that. Joys of load shedding, but lucky to see you still online. That's great, thank you. Yaki from Louis Trichart, love it. Okay, guys, just remember, you can change the default from all panelists to all panelists and attendees. That way the other attendees on the session with us today can see your comments. Otherwise, if it's just panelists, it's only to us presenters. So please change your default as well, and let's share with everyone online. Hello from Nairobi. Oh, wow, from Nigeria as well. Welcome online. Port Elizabeth topped the list. Lagos, Nigeria, welcome. Really, really great to see everyone online. Fantastic, Cape Town. Nice, thank you everyone. Really, really appreciate the participation. So the chat's there for us to keep chatting during the session. So if you want to shout out to anyone or say something or share anything, please pop on the chat and just send us your message. Let us know what you're thinking. The other area we're going to be working on is the questions and answers section. So right next to your chat, there was a Q&A section. So your Q&A section is for any questions that you would like to put to the presenter. So while the presenter's talking, while they're busy sharing insight with us, please just pop your question into the Q&A chat. I will be moderating those questions, and at the end of that presenter session, we will be working through those questions and hoping to give you some insight. If we can't get through all the questions, we will most definitely try and answer and respond to you via email or some form of collaboration after today's session. We also have our Twitter King prize this morning. So for everyone that has a Twitter account and is quite comfortable with their Twitter profiles, please use the hashtag SysproDX handle and tweet about our session this morning. Let's get everyone talking about digital transformation, and in particular today's focus session around cloud. For the person who is got the most tweets going using the hashtag SysproDX, there is a prize at the end of the session. So we'd really, really love to see you joining us on Twitter and just sharing and giving us some insight, and then potentially winning that Twitter King prize. Then lastly, we want to also do a few polls today. So we are going to be doing 3 polls during the session. We're going to do the first poll now. It's going to pop up on your screen. Our polls are anonymous, so we can not actually see who's responding to the poll. We just know that the poll is there, and you can choose an answer and it will really give us a rating. So our first poll before we head off into our session will be, are your business applications servers hosted currently? Are they on-premise in your building in a server room? Or are you not sure? So there's our first poll. I would like you just to interact with it, choose one of those answers, and then we're going to come up and show you the results on screen. So there's our poll number 1. And if everyone can just quickly do that poll for us. Fantastic. Okay, so we hosted, we're on premise, and we're not sure. Perfect. Okay, so that is how the polls are going to work. There will be 2 other polls during the session. We're going to ask you to participate. So today's session really is all about digital transformation and really with a focus on cloud. My name is Deirdre Fryer. I'm the Head of Solutions Engineering for Syspro Africa. And if you joined us on our first session of digital transformation and a digital transformation journey, we talked about what a digital journey looks like for businesses, some of the things to consider, and some of the ways to go forward with a digital journey. When we talked in that session, one of the areas that we highlighted was around being able to use our enablers and our tool sets that are available to help us on our digital journey. And a big tool set and a big focus that often comes up in this space is around cloud. And that's really what today's session is all about. So if we quickly look at our agenda, what we are going to see is that we wanted to really unpack the toolset cloud as part of our digital journey and really just get talking about why cloud is seen as part of a digital transformation and why it comes back up as one of those enablers. So I'm your facilitator for today, Deirdre Fryer. I will be talking with you and answering some of the questions and introducing you to our speakers. Our first speaker will be Johannes Kannes from Microsoft South Africa. And our next speaker is Virginia Hughes, and she's one of our customers from Gold Reef Specialty Chemicals, where they themselves have gone on a cloud journey. And she's going to share some insights with us and just some thoughts and ideas around why the business went on a cloud journey, what was that like, what did they have to consider, and really just some of the benefits as to what a cloud journey looks like for the business. And then afterwards, we'll finish with our final poll and just do a little bit of housekeeping at the end and announce our Twitter King winner. And then we will be closing. So looking very forward to the session today with Johannes and with Virginia, and know that they're going to give us a lot of insight around this cloud conversation and really why cloud is such a big part of digital transformation. So without further ado, I think let's get going and let's really kick off. So one of the things we know when we talk about cloud is the considerations. A big topic of concern is always security. Is it more secure? Is my on-premise more secure? Is it scalable? Scalability becomes a big thing. You know, sometimes in our world, we need the systems behind us that would support NASA and take us to the moon. But in some other time frames, our business quietens down a bit, not quite so seasonal. And then potentially we just need a very light version that's more suitable to a startup. So our business needs or our IT needs change all the time from an infrastructure perspective. And then we need a lot of tech specialists to also make sure that our complexity is taken out and really that our business is going to be able to function and be efficient and effective all the time. And that's really where cloud platforms and cloud hosting and environments really come to the fore, is they start to introduce this capability of security, scalability, and really leveraging teams of IT specialists behind us. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Johannes Kannes. Johannes is from Microsoft South Africa. He is the Cloud and Enterprise Business Group Executive for Microsoft South Africa and is responsible for the Intelligent Cloud Platform business, including the go-to-market strategy, revenue performance, and long-term strategic growth across all business units. During his 18+ years of service with the organization, he also performed various other roles, including 10 years in the Microsoft consulting business, leading the partner business for 3 years, as well as an international stint looking after the consulting strategy across 8 countries in MEA. Prior to joining Microsoft, Johannes was the General Manager for Partnerships at NTM Business, where he was accountable for the enterprise partner and wholesale business, where he grew at double digits over a period of 3 years to more than 4 billion in total. As a proud South African, Johannes has a passion for the African continent and how technology can empower people and organizations to achieve more. We're very excited and very happy to have Johannes from Microsoft on the session with us today. And I'm pretty sure he's going to give us quite a lot of good insight as to what a cloud journey, especially on the Azure platform, looks like. Please remember, when Johannes starts, start posting your questions in the Q&A session. And at the end of his presentation, we will then have a little bit of chat and look at some of those questions and answer them online for you. Thanks, Johannes. Great to have you with us this morning.
Thanks, Deirdre, and good morning, everyone. Very excited to be here with the Syspro team to share some insight with you. We've got some exciting topics to cover with you today. Before we start, just sharing my contact details on the screen there. So my email address, Twitter handle, LinkedIn as well, if you want to reach out to me even after the webinar. Looking forward to spending time with you. So this morning, I want to cover 3 key topics with you. As Deirdre mentioned, I run the Azure Cloud business at Microsoft and want to start off just by sharing some insights with you around what's happening on the African continent with regards to public cloud. And specifically, as you know, Microsoft has invested significantly in data center infrastructure on the continent. I want to share some insight with you in terms of how that's performing and the growth that we're seeing. And then lastly, going to some specific reasons why we see customers migrating to cloud, and also share some customer references to you as part of that. So really looking forward to that. I think if we, first of all, just take a look at what's happened over the last several months, as we've all been, locked down due to the COVID pandemic. We've seen incredible acceleration of digital transformation across the globe. And this quote from Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, where he says that, we've seen more than 2 years of digital transformation just in a few months. So it's phenomenal to see, as customers were scrambling to deal with the scenarios around remote work, around, worker health and safety, how they've embraced the power of cloud to accelerate that. And to give you an idea, globally, our Azure business grew 750% just in the period of 4 months, as customers were moving, workload from on-premises into the cloud in order to deal with the situation. So it's been phenomenal to see how fast that's grown. From a Teams point of view, so today we're using Zoom, but Microsoft has a Teams product. We were doing over 200,000 connections per minute in terms of Teams usage worldwide. So really phenomenal in terms of how everyone is embracing technology to continue to work and be productive. So let's take a look at, the African continent. Microsoft's very excited about, the potential of Africa. And as a global hyperscaler, we continue to invest significantly in capability on the continent. If we look at some of the third-party research that's been done, so this is the Zamalin Analytics report, where they've actually gone and taken a look at the African countries and kind of measured them to say which countries are cloud ready, which are in progress and making really good progress, and then which countries really have quite a bit of work to do. And you can see, based on the chart up here, they have what they call the Cloud Readiness Index. So we can see that, on the African continent, South Africa, Mauritius, Kenya, really strong position in terms of, being cloud ready, which means, good underlying infrastructure, good connectivity, and also seeing, global players significantly investing in this capability. Some of the other countries that are gearing up, so Nigeria is an interesting one. We've seen that there's a huge demand from enterprise customers in Nigeria. However, the cost of co-location and hosting is prohibitive at this stage. So there's some work to be done there. Also, from a regulatory point of view, some countries like Ghana, Zambia, etc., have some work to do in order to accelerate cloud adoption. And then, if we look at some of our neighboring countries like, Mozambique, Angola, Malawi, etc., there's quite a bit of work still to be done to make sure that they can accelerate in terms of their cloud adoption. If we, the countries that are gearing up and that are ramping up, you can see the chart on the left-hand side. Very exciting, numbers there to see that, basically public cloud services are going to triple over the next 3 to 5 years. And you can see the bar chart as the revenue predictions, continue to move up and up. So in 2020, We can see really strong growth in terms of revenue, more than 30% growth, even given the COVID pandemic. And obviously over time, as we see broad scale adoption, the growth will slow down. But even by 2023, we're still looking at close to 20% growth. What's also interesting on the right-hand side, if you take a look at what types of cloud customers are adopting, we see that the primary driver is infrastructure as a service. So what this tells us is that customers that have traditionally had servers on premises or hosting that with third parties are now moving that into the public cloud. And for the African continent, that's the biggest opportunity. Then followed by software as a service as well, and platform as a service. So software as a service, a great example of that is Office 365, which has pervasive adoption already in market. And then platform as a service, we'll get into some detail on to talk about how customers are building platform capabilities in terms of their go-to-market strategy. What's very important, when you consider cloud adoption is certainly, the support, underlying support in terms of channel capability. So the research study also shows, some of the key players like, Microsoft, IBM, AWS, and what their channel investments are in terms of partner capability. The reason this is important is that, in many cases, partners need to help customers in terms of, building their capability, maintaining that, and then also accelerating based on innovation. So Microsoft's quite proud to be a partner-led organization. We invest significantly in our channel, and we also have an extensive channel, not just in South Africa, but in other African countries as well. And this is an important consideration in terms of cloud adoption, because you want to make sure that you have the right support in place, as you journey to the cloud. The study also compares, how some of the global players stack up in terms of, things like data center investment, the ability to resell, the ability to support customers, and also, how they continue to build out capability. And we'll get into some detail around Microsoft's investments around the continent. But we can see from a Microsoft Azure point of view, well positioned. We've got local data centers on the continent. Those of you that follow Amazon see that they've also, several months ago announced a local capability. And we know that Google and some of the other players continue to invest as well. So, it's a tight competition, with a lot of investment across the different players in terms of the market. And Microsoft's also partnering with some of the key, players like Oracle and like IBM, bringing some of that capability to our cloud platforms as well. So, for example, you can lift and shift your Oracle on premises into the Azure cloud. So very exciting in terms of the partnerships that we are driving there. Let's drill into what we're seeing, pre and post COVID in terms of the market. So the chart you see here is basically the IDC forecast. The top half of the chart focuses on the public cloud adoption and growth across multiple financial years. And the bottom half focuses on on-premises software. Now, the first trend that we can see is that, cloud is significantly accelerating, post-COVID, right? And it's interesting to see that some of the key workloads in terms of growth, as per the study I mentioned, infrastructure as a service is critical. We're seeing that data platform is growing significantly, as well as customers are modernizing their data capability. In terms of the on-prem, we're noticing that, there's also a rapid decrease in terms of, the on-prem environment. And this is part of the digital transformation pressure that's been put on, is that customers are investing less in terms of on-premises capability and focusing more on the agility of cloud. So as software comes end of life on premises, they are choosing to go from a CapEx to an OpEx model, lift and shift that into the cloud, and doing so create more capability and innovation for them going forward. Now, from a Microsoft point of view, we now have 61 data centers across the globe. And if you zoom in on the African continent, you can see the two big dots there at the southern tip of Africa. We've got two local data centers in South Africa, one based in Johannesburg and one in Cape Town. But more importantly, we continue to invest in points of presence across the continent. So you can see all the other dots along the coastline popping up. We're connecting to multiple undersea cables to make sure that we have redundancy in terms of service, keeping services on. And we're also looking at future data center investments across the continent. We make a huge investment in terms of the connectivity. We have our own worldwide network that we run as well, with over 20,000 peering points across the globe. And we also have a significant partner network. So we work with some of the key connectivity partners across the globe to make sure, as customers are modernizing their networks, that they can leverage the power of SD-WAN and use the software as a service capability. And we'll continue to build out that momentum across the globe. Now, this is great for customers that have a global presence. As Deirdre mentioned, Syspro is a key customer of ours as well, and we're working with the team to provide services across the globe based upon this infrastructure. One of the key things that customers want is security. So apart from having great connectivity worldwide and lots of services, it's really important to provide a secure environment. As you follow the press, you can see that the increase in cyber attacks has significantly ramped up during the COVID period, and this is really becoming big business now, right? Customers are being held ransom, for their information. If we look at Garmin as one of the global companies recently, held ransom for $10 million of Bitcoin in terms of their environment. So we invest a huge amount of resources in terms of making sure our cloud infrastructure is the most secure. We have over 3,500 employees that work full-time in the security space. We analyze trillions of signals a day in terms of what we call the Microsoft Security Graph, and we really focus on 4 key areas in terms of driving security. We're making sure that we protect the identity. So things like Active Directory, the identity in the cloud is critical, and how you access that information. We are proactively monitoring around threat protection and making sure that, we pick up trends globally in terms of threats that are coming on board. And then really making sure that, your information is protected in the right way by using a combination of technologies and partnerships. And then more critical, as customers are venturing to the cloud, making sure you have a great cloud security experience. And we've invested in some cloud native AI capability like Azure Sentinel that will really help customers in this regard. But what's also important is terms of compliance, right? And you can see on the right-hand side, we have over 91 global accreditations, whether those are ISO certifications or industry-specific accreditations for financial sector, etc. We have a very big team that focuses just on making sure that we meet regulatory requirements in every country, including South Africa, where we've been working with the government around the POPI Act as it's been introduced into enablement. And this is really important consideration as well, because we realize that customers want to feel trusted. And therefore, we're confident that we are the most trusted cloud when it comes to compliance. So in terms of Azure, just maybe for those of you that are not familiar, Azure provides you a whole series of capabilities. We have everything from pure infrastructure as a service, of being able to spin up a server in the environment, all the way through to building some really advanced capability, leveraging the power of AI, machine learning, and a wealth of services beyond that. We also realize that customers, not just in Africa, but across the globe, are connecting from edges, so they have mining facilities, they have poorly connected environments where they only have 5G. So we're also focusing on building end-to-end service capability around IoT and around some of the specific scenarios that are needed in terms of connectivity. So if you put all that together, you have quite incredible, I always refer to Azure as a box of Legos. There's so many different building blocks that you can use to build out the needs of your organization to make sure you can address, the business needs as you drive your digital transformation capability. If we look at the South African data centers over the last year, so we've been open for a little bit more than a year now. We've seen phenomenal growth in terms of that. We've had thousands of customers come on board. We've grown the cloud business 102% year on year, which is phenomenal performance. From a data and AI point of view, we've basically tripled the usage of data and AI. And there's really three key drivers for that. We're seeing customers are modernizing their legacy database environments. So they're moving, for example, their SQL servers on premises into the cloud. We're also seeing that many customers are embracing open source. And Microsoft's very proud of the open source relationships and the capability that we have, supporting many open source environments. And then thirdly, we're seeing customers are accelerating their cloud scale analytics. So instead of building data warehouses on site and building analytics on site, we're seeing that they're now natively building that in the cloud. And those are kind of the key patterns that are driving the growth there. We're also quite excited that we were the second fastest growing Azure region in the globe in the first year, only second behind the UK. So it shows that South African and African customers are ready to drive digital transformation, and they are actively doing so compared to some other areas of the world. So very interesting to look at the stats there. And then at the bottom, we can see that some of the services, we don't have time to get into a lot of detail around this, but we continue to drive active server usage and new services into market, things like streaming analytics, cognitive services, networking capability around software firewalls, etc., are all coming online. And we have hundreds of services running already in the cloud. From a Windows Virtual Desktop point of view, during COVID, we released the capability to also launch that locally out of our data centers. And we've seen thousands and thousands of virtual desktop sessions spin up. And this has really helped enterprise customers, including some of the big banks, to have thousands of people online simply by the click of a button. So great capability that provides. And then lastly, we're also building a lot of redundancy into our network environment. So we're bringing online what we call availability zones. We're building out additional facilities that will have copies and replicas of customer capability around the cloud by the end of this year. So very exciting to see how that's progressing as well. I'm not going to spend time on this, but I did want to share this for you as part of the session. This is a list of all the services that we run live in terms of cloud migration and cloud adoption. There's a lot to choose from, a lot of specialized services as well. I think the point here is that anything that you can think of in terms of a use case, we can most likely provide you with that capability in terms of our hyperscale data centers. So just keep that in mind as you build out your cloud migration plan. From an open source point of view, we've made significant investments in terms of partnerships. Those of you that have been around will know 10, 15 years ago, Microsoft was in battle with open source communities. Today, we are one of the biggest, embracers of open source, and we run all of these natively out of our data centers. We've seen phenomenal uptake, in terms of open source capability, and some of the operating systems like SUSE and Red Hat, some of the databases, are really accelerating in growth. And we actually see that they're growing faster than the Windows infrastructure. So an interesting stat, for example, is that in the South African data centers, we run more open source workloads than we actually run Windows workloads. So it shows you how pervasive the usage is across, not just enterprise customers, but across all segments of customers. So great capability and choice there. In addition to that, there's the Azure Marketplace. So you're able to go in here and select predefined solutions that have been optimized. So the point here is that customers can very quickly, adopt new capability. Think of it as the app store that you use on your phone, where you can go in, select an app or a solution, and literally spin this up in your environment. It's fully optimized, fully configured. And so if you've made investments in terms, for example, in terms of on-prem storage or backup with Commvault or Veritas or Veeam, you can literally go into the cloud, select that, and turn that on natively as well. So it really makes it easy in terms of driving customer adoption. So very nice capability there. And then lastly, just to share a couple of links with you before we go into some detail around why we see customers driving adoption of the cloud. These are important links that will keep you up to date with all the services and investments that we're making across the region. The azure.com/products by region allows you to drill into those 61 regions across the globe and go filter on what services are running. So for example, if you want to deploy Cosmos DB as an open source database, you can go in there, take a look at where in the world that we provide that in terms of our 61 regions. So that's a handy link that I just wanted to share with you for afterwards as well. So let's change gears slightly and talk about, what are the key drivers that we see in terms of, customers adopting cloud. And what we find is that, there are many different entry points. We do see that some customers, as on-prem software comes to end of life or end of support, that's a trigger for them to actually, venture into the cloud. When data center contracts expire, this is something quite common we're seeing in the South African market, where customers been hosting with a third-party provider. That contract comes to an end, and then they prefer to go to a pay-as-you-go model. And that's a big driver for using public cloud and investing in the Azure infrastructure. Acquisitions, being able to quickly integrate capability. The power of cloud and the limitless scale allows you to very quickly manipulate that, and we're seeing that key customers are using that to drive that as well. Urgent capacity needs is an interesting one. We've got a great case study where a particular customer, a retailer, was rolling out a bunch of different stores, and they very quickly needed to scale. And that was the key trigger for them to go to cloud, because you can log on to a portal and within minutes have a full environment up and running, to support your store, versus the traditional model where you have to order hardware, get providers on site, and it takes a long time. So the agility is really a key driver. And then security. We've had, several customers that have come on board because they've been hacked in terms of their on-premise environment. They know that based on the $1 billion investment we make in security, that our data centers are very secure. So they choose to then rather put those assets into the cloud and rely on Microsoft's capability in terms of protecting that. So these are some of the different angles that we see that customers are using in terms of making that initial cloud migration decision. Also innovation, the innovation that we offer in the cloud, the artificial intelligence capability, the machine learning capability, and the hundreds of specialized services, in terms of, high performance compute, etc., is really enticing for customers because it lowers the barrier of entry in terms of being able to use that innovation and drive next generation cloud services and capability to their customer base. So very exciting in terms of that. From an application point of view, we could probably do a whole session just around, customers' migration strategies for applications. But just in summary, there's a couple of key options to consider, right? You can literally take what you have on premises and rehost that in the cloud, right? And that's quite straightforward to do. You can make some minimal tweaks to that environment. Start leveraging things like containers. Get rid of the underlying operating system capability and go native containers. And with some minor changes, be able to move an application or a web app into the cloud. The more complex scenarios, and typically where a lot of our partners get involved, is helping customers re-architect old, outdated, on-premises applications and re-architect them to make sure that they can leverage things like serverless, like microservices, and really create some of the new adoption capability that Cloud Native provides for you. And then the last is pretty much rebuilding an application, right? Or writing Cloud Native apps. And we see customers, taking one or multiple of these strategies based on all of the applications that they run, depending on where the life cycle of each application is. But the point here is that there's a lot of options for you and different entry points that will help you in terms of this journey. In terms of cloud adoption as well, we found that, the initial experience for customers was frustrating because there were gaps in skills and didn't quite understand, some of the capability. So we've launched what we call the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. And this really focuses on, best practices from a people, technology, and process point of view. In terms of people, it's critical to make sure that you skill your workforce in terms of cloud. And there's a massive amount of investment going into reskilling, IT resources and different parts of the business to leverage the capability of cloud. The second piece is really making sure that, you have the right approach to adopting cloud. So understanding what's needed to put the foundation services in, understanding, how to go about that, and make sure that you're leveraging best practices according to that. The last thing you want is to switch on your cloud services and get a massive bill shock because you didn't know what you were turning on. So we provide clear guidance in terms of what we call the foundation elements in terms of setting up successful cloud and how to do things like cost management properly. So these are great resources. These are free online that you can download and leverage as part of your cloud plan in terms of migrating to the cloud. Then we also realized that most customers are not going to go either on-prem or cloud. It's going to be a hybrid approach, meaning that customers will continue to have significant investment in terms of their on-premise capability, and in time start building out some of the cloud capability and invest in some of the new cloud-native innovation that's available. What's important here is that we're investing in technology to give you a seamless experience so that you're able to use some of the cloud capability like Sentinel to also monitor your on-premises environment and manage that correctly. It's very important that you have a great experience across the different elements, whether it's on-prem, hybrid, or even at the remote edge, in the scenario of a mine that is often disconnected. You still want to be able to have that capability to manage that and service, the people that are in those remote locations. And we're investing in a lot of innovation around that to make sure that customers have a great hybrid experience. Because if you look at the Gartner and the IDC research, you'll see that 70% of customers will be in a hybrid state for several years to come. So it's an important consideration in terms of providing that capability to customers. Maybe to share a couple of interesting stats just around Microsoft's own adoption of cloud and to show you what's capable. If you look at the top left-hand side, you can see, and Microsoft has done some analysis of our own environment. As you know, we have over 100,000 employees worldwide. We have very extensive environments. And in June 2014, we had 42,000 servers globally running on premises as an organization. By June of last year, we had cut that down to 3,400 by driving aggressive cloud adoption. I'm not going to go through all the stats there for you, but you can see that, there's been significant impact in terms of that. The interesting one there is to look at CapEx spend. So in 2014, we were spending about $78 million in terms of, CapEx expenditure for IT. By last year, we were spending less than $5 million by leveraging the power of cloud. So it tells a very compelling story in terms of the business case for cloud, right? On the bottom left-hand side, you can also see how, our IT organization is driving cost savings. And what they're doing is that in the cloud, you have the ability to do what they call snoozing. So you can, if you're not using a particular resource, you can turn that off and it lowers the cost for you. And by having scripts in place to turn down non-production environments at night, etc., you can drive significant cost savings. So over time, you can see that, our cloud capability has accelerated significantly. Our cash expenditure has dropped. And, we're also using less labor in terms of, IT people to provide those resources. So quite interesting to look at how Microsoft has kind of, as we call it, eat our own dog food and led in terms of cloud adoption and usage. maybe to touch on a couple of other customer scenarios locally that's relevant. And I've just created a summary slide there for you. You can see that across many industries, customers are driving cloud adoption, whether it's finance, whether it's mining, manufacturing, and even in sport. If you look at the top right-hand side in terms of SA Rugby, we've been working very closely with SA Rugby in terms of their digital transformation. And there's a phenomenal story behind that in terms of how they're using even the power of AI now in terms of game analysis, etc. And we started this journey with them about 2 years ago, and we feel that a lot of the investments that Russ and the team made, provided them with advanced capability that set them up for success in terms of the World Cup. Some of the banks you can see there, Nedbank, Standard Bank, all driving aggressive digital transformation journeys, moving on-premises capability into the cloud, leveraging native capability in terms of AI, BI, etc. So very exciting to see how the financial industry is shaping. And then if we look across government, last year Microsoft signed an agreement with CETA around opening up the capability for government agencies to leverage public cloud based on the local data centers, having things like local data residency, etc. And this has really created some great use cases. Gauteng provincial government, one of the leading entities in the public sector in terms of driving cloud adoption. The eThekwini water services, you can see the quote there from Avinash saying they were able to now recover the environment within an hour and a half, where previously it took multiple days to restore that environment, right? So from an operations agility point of view, really great in terms of what you're able to do with the power of cloud. And then we can also see from a professional services point of view, Weber Wenzel driving digital innovation, and Spar, one of the key retailers that's leading the way in terms of driving next generation applications, cloud native, and being able to spin up a Spar store in any location within hours based on the power of cloud. So lots of different use cases. You can go up to the Microsoft.com/case study site and read more about each one of these very interesting scenarios that are being unpacked in terms of how each one of these organizations in the different industries are leveraging the power of cloud. I think with that, my time is probably up. So I'm going to hand that back to Deirdre. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks, Joel. Really, really insightful. I appreciate the time and sharing with us this morning. There are a few questions that have come up based on your presentation that I'd just like to talk through with you, if you don't mind. Two of them are around the location. So it's great to see the coverage and the spread and how Microsoft is investing and expanding across all the different regions. There was a question about, do you have any insight into where the expansion is going with Ethiopia, or how ready they are in regards to being digitally ready?
So Deirdre, I obviously look after South Africa in terms of the detail. I do know that there are some plans from Azure Global to expand in certain countries. Obviously, that is quite sensitive information, so I do not have privy to that. But if the individual wanted to reach out to me on email, I can see if we can maybe work with IT to get some additional feedback from the global expansion team on that.
Perfect. And I know in your presentation you did share a link, and one of the links did talk around potential understanding what's available in your region.
Yes.
And the question was also then around your data centers potentially, are you considering launching in Kenya? So perhaps maybe we'll just also share that link with all the attendees afterwards, and then they can go and explore that availability in their regions as well.
Correct. Yeah, we'll make sure to share those hyperlinks with everyone on the session. Perfect.
And then another question that's come in, and I think this is always a big question when we talk about shifting to a cloud platform from on-premise. And it's just really that whole mind shift change of moving from CapEx to an OpEx environment. So the question is, obviously, when you move, you're moving from balance sheet to income statement, which then tends to be a lot more visible to the executive team and your stakeholders and your shareholders and the board. So often the question then is, because it's always so heightened and in everyone's eyes and really visible, what does that payback period look like and the ROI, or how, what's the conversation around reminding business and keeping business vigilant as to the benefits of that cloud that's now so evident monthly?
So Deirdre, a very good question. I think there are a couple of key things to consider. First of all, the upfront business case is very important, right? So understanding, you know, what the organization's current IT spend is, and then potentially looking at, you know, a cloud roadmap. So some type of assessment is important to look at so that you can get, you know, very specific financial detail around that. We have an assessment which is called the business value assessment that helps customers build that business case, because, you know, for every customer, the upfront spend is different. There's things to consider in terms of like network providers and what the cost around networking is. There's some redesign needed in terms of the cloud. One of the biggest mistakes we see customers make in terms of their business cases is they assume that what they spend on connectivity today is what they're going to spend tomorrow, right? And it is different. Also, often when we buy servers on-prem, we typically overspec those servers so that they can run for 5 years. What's great about the cloud and the agility around cloud, you can really spec for exactly what you need today. So you can lower the cost. And one of the key mistakes customers make in terms of the ROI is they say, okay, I'm running a very big machine on-prem, I need a very big machine in Azure. And obviously the cost goes up, right? So it's important to do the granular detail. And we encourage customers to also have their financial team as part of the business case. You know, so working with, you know, the CFO and the team to make sure that you do the right analysis in terms of numbers. But we can certainly provide guidance in terms of that. And we have a great partner ecosystem, you know, working from enterprise all the way to small businesses that can provide very good guidance on it. I hope that answers it.
No, I think it gives some great insight. And I think you're so right, though, because I do think that it's sometimes difficult to compare those apples with apples. Like you say, when we plan for CapEx, we plan for 5 years. And sometimes what we don't realize is that in an Azure world, if we're shifting to a cloud platform, that's a progressive, you start small and then you build. But the nice thing is as well, is you've also got that ability to downscale if you need to, or upscale. So you might start bigger than what you thought, and then you realize that that's not really necessary. So it even gives you that ability to downscale. Whereas in a CapEx world, you don't have that. Once you've got those, once you've done that CapEx expenditure, you're stuck with it for at least 5 years, and there's no backs or take backs. So I think also remain visible and keep current in the business is understanding what that journey looks like as well.
And what's interesting, maybe to use a couple of practical examples, is we saw during COVID, you know, where some customers were struggling financially, they could literally go turn services off, right, and drive cost savings. Where if they'd invested in CapEx, they're stuck, right? So the agility is really a key consideration for the business case.
I suppose, yeah, and if you think about just the current scenario as well, I know with some of our clients as well, what we saw was, because businesses couldn't trade, you downed a lot of the environments and you saved during that period because you didn't have to have that consumption happening at that point. But then once business was able to start trading again and come back online again, it was just a matter of spin up. So there are those periods as well. And some of our clients, you know, they've seen the reverse where COVID has just pushed their sales and their demands up to such an extent that they had to scale very quickly to accommodate that time period. But now we're scaling again, and so we can start to downscale again. So it really does help that volatility of business as well.
Spot on, yeah.
And then one of the other questions was just saying, from a South Africa perspective, how do we protect ourselves against a volatile rand and ensure we are adhered to budgeted expenditure, assuming that the cost around Azure is obviously linked to the dollar?
Correct.
Thoughts or questions there?
Yeah, so Deirdre, I mean, obviously from an Azure point of view, we as a global organization, we do bill in dollars. So it is important to consider that. There's a couple of key things. I think the biggest risk factor is paying by credit card. So we have different ways to pay in terms of cloud usage. The lowest barrier to entry is simply putting a credit card down, right? And there you're, you know, dependent on the volatility of the rand dollar. Some of our bigger customers are going into what they call enterprise agreements. where you have a much longer term agreement. That's typically a 3-year agreement. And so as part of that, you buy a certain amount of consumption. And what's great about that as well, there's a capability, what we call reserved instance. So by buying bulk up front, you're able to really bring down, the cost in terms of managing that. And that's probably the most economical way of procuring Azure. I think also what's important is that customers that have enterprise agreements have what we call hybrid usage benefits. So if I take a look at some of the case studies I showed there, like NetBank, Standard Bank, etc., they have very big multi-year agreements, but that also allows them to take on-premises software. So for example, a SQL server running on-premise and move that into Azure at a fraction of the cost. So they're not paying double, they're literally getting a big discount to incentivize them to move that into Azure. And that's how you really drive the ROI and make sure you stay on top of. Unfortunately, our currency is very volatile and it has depreciated 25% in the last year. And so that's some of the key things you can do in order to counter that.
Perfect. And I know, I suppose just one thing that I know is I suppose people can be mindful of is, whilst we can't physically shift your hardware up to the cloud, I think sometimes that people don't understand is we can bring your own license. So we can, if we've already got those Microsoft licenses, those SQL licenses, we've already invested from a software perspective. That's not to say that we can't just shift those and bring those along for the journey so that we're not reinvesting, which is so very true.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just one last question before we end off, because I know we're also running short of time and we want to move on to our next speaker as well. There's just a question around, is there a model that illustrates drivers to determine IIS as opposed to PAS or versus opposed to PAS? Yeah. I know kind of linked to, there are some tools or some surveys that you guys have, but
so very good question. I think it has a lot to do with customer maturity in terms of making those decisions. The easiest way is to do infrastructure as a service. However, from an innovation point of view, platform is really the way to go. So what we see, some customers are saying, I'm initially going to lift and shift, and then I'm going to optimize in the cloud, right? Now that can be slightly more costly. What other customers are doing is they're saying, you know what, I'm going to go directly from on-premise infrastructure to platform as a service. So some of the resources available for there is around things like the business value assessment, some of the other solution assessments that we drive. And there's some great third-party tools as well that can give you per cost per VM. You can get very granular in terms of that analysis that you want to do. So there is a multitude of tools out there. I'll share a couple of links afterwards on the Microsoft website. We also have a capability which we call Azure Migrate, and we have a free engineering service which we call Fast Track for Azure, where engineering will work with the customer to make some of those key decisions around that for them.
Perfect, thanks. And I know, with our partnership with Microsoft as well, and our ability to host our clients on the Microsoft Azure platform, those are sort of the tools that, yes, definitely help us plan and help us make sure that we're scaling and that we are putting in the right infrastructures to support their clients. So
absolutely. And Deidre, I forgot to mention, you guys are another great reference case for us. We've been working closely with Syspro around the global rollout for your new cloud services. Very excited about the progress there. And I think it's really going to set you and your customer base up for success in the coming years.
For sure, 100% agree. Johannes, I just want to say thank you very much. Really, really appreciate the time this morning. Appreciate the chat and the conversation and the insights. Just for everyone online, we'll definitely be sharing those links and some of those resources. But thanks very much, Johannes. Really, really great. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Deirdre. Thanks, everyone.
If you're a manufacturer and distributor looking for an enterprise resource planning solution, but you're worried about the impact of on-premise deployment on your cash flow, look no further than Syspro Managed Cloud Services. When you shift the management and hosting of your ERP infrastructure to Syspro, you receive immediate value without the upfront investment. or business pains typically associated with building out, maintaining, and upgrading on-premise IT infrastructure, freeing you up to focus on running your business rather than your IT. Syspro gives you a fully managed infrastructure where all your needs and requisites are taken care of, and you only pay for the resources you use. Deployed by Syspro and hosted on the Microsoft Azure cloud platform in data centers throughout the world, it focuses on security, privacy, compliance, and transparency. It offers you 24/7 monitoring, maintenance, and support included in a single monthly fee, allowing you to manage your expenses more effectively. It is flexible enough to meet your unique needs with an option to transition to a hybrid cloud environment. It can be turned on within a few days or even hours, allowing you to be up and running quickly. You can access all your Syspro data anytime, any-place, using any device. And it streamlines your adoption of new technologies while you carry on with business as usual. Syspro Managed Cloud Services lets you expand or contract your computing power in line with business demand without compromising on performance. Stringent security policies ensure your critical business data is safe and sound in the cloud. And best of all, you know your mission-critical systems are being diligently looked after by people with the right skill set. Now you can focus on manufacturing instead of IT.
Okay. Great insight from Johannes from Microsoft. I hope everyone's still enjoying the session and online with us this morning. Let's just quickly get you all interactive before our next speaker comes on, and let's do our second poll. So we've got our second poll coming up. It should be on screen very, very soon. And let's just see what that poll's looking like for us. Which do you think is safer from being hacked? Your on-premise environment, a hosted in Azure environment, or you're still not sure? Just referencing back to JK's one stat, about 3,500 full-time security professionals monitoring and looking at that Azure environment should hopefully give us a little bit of confidence as to which one is potentially the safer environment to be on. So let's see the results of that poll. Okay, so 66% of the audience online do feel that hosted in an Azure platform would be a lot safer from being hacked versus an on-premise environment. So moving on, obviously we've got the consideration of Microsoft and using Microsoft as a platform, and us as Syspro, you know, what I really like about the vendor approach that we're seeing a lot happening in the space is, as vendors, we're partnering with partners like Microsoft and really giving you, the business, an opportunity to let us manage the IT and the software side for you, and you can really carry on with business. Our next speaker coming up is Virginia Hughes. She's a customer of Syspro, and they actually went recently, a while back, on a cloud journey. They made the decision to shift from on-premise to cloud. And what we really wanted to do was ask Virginia and invite Virginia just to share a little bit of that insight today, and just give us some insight as to what the business considerations were around shifting to a cloud journey. So Virginia is the financial manager of Gold Reef Specialty Chemicals, which is part of the Deneb Investments, a listed JSE company. Virginia has worked there for 8 years, starting as financial accountant and promoted 5 years ago to financial manager. In addition to being the financial manager, she is involved a lot on the IT side of the company. Virginia has studied both accounting and IT, and she believes that IT plays a very important part of any company. It's the way forward, or you are left behind. She has studied via ACCAA, an internationally recognized accounting body, and studied IT at GMIT in Galway, Ireland. Virginia is originally from Ireland, but has lived in South Africa for over 8 years now. I'd like to welcome Virginia online, and really looking forward to just giving some context and insight into what a cloud journey looks like for business. and really just love the fact that she comes from both an accounting and an IT exposure and experience. So welcome, Virginia.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Deirdre, for inviting me to do this with you. And I hope that I can help people understand from a financial side and from a company and a manufacturing side how being hosted in the cloud and changing from on-site can help you. Obviously, for me, being a financial manager and having some IT knowledge, it really did assist me in my journey along this. I'm going to share some slides with you now and hopefully talk you through it. And, you know, mine will be a very different side to JK's, you know, speeches on his products that he sells. We actually use the product and we have taken the step to move into the cloud. And as I share my slides with you, hopefully it'll help you, you know, understand and be able to answer some of the questions if this is something that you or your company would like to take on this journey, and I'll answer questions throughout with you. So I'm going to share some slides. I'm going to talk through them and give you as much as possible information as I'm going through the slides. Sorry now. I'm going to go full screen for you. Okay, so as Deirdre said, I actually work for Gold Reef Speciality Chemicals. It's a chemical manufacturing company. We are part of the Deneb Investments. HCI Hoskins is our ultimate holding company, and we're listed on the JSE. About 2 years back, we decided that, 2 to 3 years back, sorry, we decided that our IT infrastructure was not where we wanted it to be. We had a lot of issues, we had a lot of problems, we'd had a lot of downtime. Our server was getting old and we needed to either purchase a new server or look at other areas or other avenues to help us, because we couldn't afford to have downtime. Being a JSE listed company, and really for any company, financials are a key point in any business. Shareholders, directors, CEOs, they don't want to wait for figures just because you can't access your data or your server has a problem. They want it live and there and then. So, and it's not, this is not just for somebody that has one office. We've got, as you can see from the slide on your screen now, we've got a footprint in Joburg, Cape Town, Durban. So our main office, I am based in Durban. Our head office is in Cape Town. That's where we report into all our financials. And then we've got warehouses, dispatch, distribution, and sales in Cape Town, Joburg, and Durban. So we need to be able to communicate. We travel a great deal and we need to be able to have full access to our systems. And then when we decided to go on this journey, we looked at purchasing a new server. And then we also spoke to IT people about what could we do? Where could we go from here? You know, we got quotes, CapEx quotes on new servers, and a lot of us in the financial role say, as we say, CapEx is a balance sheet item, and then you depreciate that monthly and you see your depreciation on your income statement. And as one of the questions was posed to JK earlier, you know, it goes from a balance sheet to an income statement, and it's very much more in the faces of who you're reporting to. Yes, that's correct. But remember, your depreciation of your CapEx item is on your income statement monthly. So your IT expenses, your depreciation decreases because now you don't have an outlay of a big CapEx item. But yes, that expense moves into your IT costs on your income statement. Now, there's a lot of benefits to not, it's the cash flow number one of outflowing on a CapEx. Depending on the size of your business or the type of business you're in, or what kind of systems you run on your server, that will be what the outlay or the expenditure will be on your CapEx, on your server. So that's part of the consideration that us financial people have to consider when the IT team bring to you, oh, well, we're not going to buy a server, we're now going to go to cloud. And you say, well, what's the cost comparisons? And that was a big area that we looked into. So the benefits of the cloud is, and from my point of view, and I think, every company will be slightly different, but this is from my point of view, and I do believe that cloud is cheaper than CapEx. The cloud benefits is it's lower cost of ownership. Okay, so you don't now own this big server that can cost you anything from 200K all the way up to 5, 6. It depends on how big the server is and what you need on that server. So it's a lower cost as far as I'm concerned, because the monthly outlay, and which was spoken about in the previous presentation, is you can just spec it to what you need right now. It's not what you think you'll need down the road in 2 years' time, because maybe your business is scaling up and your forward thinking is, well, the server I have now may not be what I need now. You can just get your cloud benefits to fit for what you need now. At any stage, you can then speak to your cloud service provider and say, okay, I don't have enough space, I'm scaling up a little bit, I need some more space. So it's low cost of ownership, but it's easily to upgrade. So you can upgrade at any time. You just need to give notice, and it's not a waiting game. They just give you more space. There's no IT maintenance cost. So the IT maintenance cost is really done by who you go into cloud with. We are not with Azure, we're with Terrico, which is based in Joburg also. The good thing about that is the benefits, the knowledge, that comes with that, the upgrades. So what we did was we took our IT infrastructure, we took our Syspro, which is our accounting, which is the backbone of any company, and it's something that you really don't want anybody to have any information on except for you. We took that and we put that in the cloud. We put our SQL server in the cloud. And the knowledge that the cloud people had in order for us to have full access all the time, maintain it all the time, upgrades, I put patches in for the upgrades. You don't have to do that, they do that. The benefits of that is when we travel, when we have to travel to conferences or to meetings or to see customers, we are productive anywhere. We don't have to be sitting at our desk in our office. We can access that at any place, anywhere. While you're sitting in the lounge at the airport waiting to get onto your flight, you can, as the financial manager or as the sales manager, you might want to see live sales data or whatever. We then put a FortiClient, a VPN access, where you could access straight up into the cloud once you had internet access, and you could work on the live system. You could see live data. Has something been dispatched to a customer? Why is there a problem with this customer account? What's happening in your GLs? What's happening in your balance sheet? You have all that ease of access from anywhere. If you have to be at home as a parent and you've got kids that are unwell or whatever, having cloud, you can go straight into the cloud. You can have all those benefits of easy access. We then also looked at our data storage and our backups. So prior to us moving to the cloud, our backups were also on site. So we thought, well, how secure is that? Okay, We back up on a separate tape, they're taken away, that's fine. But how secure is that? So we looked at cloud as well, and we decided to use Veeam backups, which is backups into the cloud. And that backup they store our backups for 7 days. So we have 7 separate days of backups, and they get written over, the oldest one first. The benefits of that was to restore from backup was so quick and easy. We had an incident here where our on-site server was hit by a ransomware. And that was simply because somebody plugged an external dongle into a computer or laptop. It had a virus on it. We had a shared drive, shared service, and it, went on our server. We had to call in our IT guys. We had external IT trying to help us, trying to restore data. And of course, it was in a crucial time, month end, almost financial year end. And, we were panic stricken. And it took them days to get our data back. And what we found was our latest backup in that incident also had the virus on it. And we had a major problem. With having cloud and cloud backup, to restore from that literally takes 1 hour to an hour and a half. For any company or regardless whether you're in finance, where you don't want to be down for long. You can't afford to be down for 2 to 3 days. With cloud, they can restore you within an hour and a half to 2 hours. And you more than likely, is that you won't lose data. You will be like 5 minutes away from when you were. So that was a massive benefit for us. So the cloud advantages for us were, it enables your business to communicate and share more easily outside the normal traditional way. Okay, so when we say normal traditional way, we mean that you don't have to be sitting in your office. We're all moving forward. In our working environment now, it doesn't mean that you have to sit in the office for 8 hours a day. You come in at 8 and you leave at 4, 5, 6, whatever time you want to leave. You can now have people that work from home, are traveling, working, and that's all the benefits of cloud. I'm not saying you can't have that with a normal server, but the connectivity into the cloud is so much better. We also have, and it's a lot of us, we have outages, power outages. Once your power goes down, if you don't have a proper UPS backup, your server goes down, your on-site server goes down. It might last if you've got a UPS with good battery life for an hour or so, but it's not going to last for long. For us with the cloud services, if we go down, you've got battery on your laptop for 3-4 hours. Normally, we have outages for 2 hours. You don't lose that 2 hours because you have access straight into the cloud. The cloud is still working. Most of your Azure, Terraco, wherever is hosting your server, they've got huge UPSs, huge backup generators that keep you running. So even if they have power outages, there's a UPS or a backup generator that keeps you going. So you don't lose that time. And time is critical for a lot of companies. So that was another benefit for us going to cloud, is we had rolling outages, and we still have them here in Durban, but we could continue to work on our laptops for 2 to 3 hours, and we didn't have downtime. It's available worldwide as well. So, for instance, as Deirdre said in the beginning, I'm Irish, but I've lived here. But we do travel internationally. I have gone overseas for a week or so, and I can sit overseas in my hometown, and I've got full access to my accounting system, my files, everything, because they're in the cloud. I have a 40 client UPS VPN access up into the cloud, secure access, and I can access that no problem. As long as you have a good internet Wi-Fi. And some of us, yes, if your power goes out, your Wi-Fi goes down. But a lot of us have dongles, or we have a phone that we can hotspot off or whatever. So as long as you have an internet, a secure internet access, you can access your cloud. It's so flexible for workspace. You know, some people are restricted to say, well, I can't continue to work because I can't be in the office 8 hours a day. I have to be able to, you know, fetch my kids, or, you know, do things like that. The flexibility that it gives you in your workspace, you know, to work from home. Some of us, when it comes to the crunches, especially, you know, and I'm talking to financial people now at month end or at financial year end, when it comes to that crunch, you know, you could be sitting in the office until 10 o'clock at night. It's more secure, more comfortable if you're sitting at home. You can spend an hour or so with your family, make sure everything's okay, and then log on to your laptop. And yes, you can do that with anything. But what I'm saying is you've got full 100% access to your accounting, to your files when it's in the cloud. And that's what's nice. It's flexible. You can access this from anywhere. It makes a massive difference to your work, family, home environment, you know, that you're not tied to the office all the time. And like I said before, it's automatic updates. So cloud, your service providers, they automatically do all of those updates for you. We have our SQL server, so they automatically update for us. We have our Syspro in the cloud. So we needed Microsoft Word, we need our printer, all of that. And that automatically, all of those updates get automatically done. Our Syspro consultant is based in PE. We're based in Durban. And our Syspro consultant at any stage, it's got secure access. He's got secure access to assist us. He doesn't need to come on site. So if we were to bring him up, we would have to fly him up, pay for accommodation, and have him on site for 2 or 3 days. We may only need his assistance for 30 minutes, for 40 minutes. So he can log in to our cloud services, check to see what the problem is, why a report isn't running, why it isn't printing, what the problem is, and be off in 20 minutes. If we didn't have the cloud services, and yes, you can still access some certain areas by using Teams or other access where they can dial into your on-site server. But a lot of them would have to come on site, check the server on site, see if there isn't a switch or something that's, for us, they dial straight in. They've got full view of the server. They can check what the issue is. You know, he can consult online with our MIT support, and they can resolve our issue in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes. And that's all we're billed for. We're billed for that 20 minutes. We're not billed for the time it took him to travel to get to us. We're not billed for the time, you know, he gets here and we've sent him an email, we've explained it, and it takes him 20 minutes. We're down for a very short space of time, because as soon as we can log it, he can immediately look at it. He doesn't have to get in a car, get to us, then for us to explain, open your IT server room, all of that. So it makes a big difference. And like a lot of us, in our question is, why move to the cloud? Is it safe? Is it expensive? And is it safe? That was one of my key questions in my mind when I made the decision to move to cloud. And Syspro for me is my accounting system. And yes, I've got IT background, and yes, a lot of my experience as well as in IT, but my job is I am the financial manager. So it is, I safeguard the financials of the company. So now I'm thinking, I'm taking my financials and I'm moving it off site and I'm putting it in the cloud for somebody else. Now, is that secure? Are we sure nobody else can access our data? what is if we go down, how quick can it be back up? I can't afford to be down. Do they understand the urgency of this? Do the IT guys behind this understand the urgency of this? For us financial people, time is money, time is precious, and we cannot, I hit a flat panic if I go down, because I'm thinking, my reporting deadlines are so tight, I can't afford to lose 5 to 10 minutes, not to mind 2 days. So that was a big question on my mind. And when I spoke to our IT consultants and our on-site IT people and off-site IT people, and we got various quotes on, what it would be, and I spoke around the security. How secure was it? They've got firewalls in place. I get daily reports on, my backup, how long it took to do my backup. Was it successful? Yes. Was there any threats? We get firewall reports to say if there was any threats, whether it was the malicious one, whether, how many were blocked, how many, and that is the good thing about using somebody like Azure or Terraco or somebody like that, is their infrastructure on security is massive, because they're not just looking after me, Gold Reef, Blue Reef. They're looking after quite a lot of customers that have put their data in their hands. So should they be hit with any type of virus or any type of that, they're not just dealing with me from Gold Reef, they're dealing with numerous people. So security wise, it's 100% safer in the cloud. Like I said, we got hit by a virus here. Yes, we have an on-site firewall, but people come and plug into the systems, and they're on because they're allowed on, and then suddenly they open a file or whatever, and we have a shared drive and it corrupts our whole drives. Backups, they are so much, we're not worried about backups. We're not worried about backups. We come in the morning and our backup has failed. We've put our backups into the cloud. We use Veeam backups. So if your backup on the first attempt doesn't run, then they give it time and they try again. Whereas if you have on-site backup and it fails during the night, it's waiting for you to come in the morning, just try to figure out what's happened. Why is this down? Why didn't the backup run? What stopped the backup? And then you're having to try to do the backup. Then you've got to try to get people off the system to do the backup. And to make sure, and if the backup doesn't run, then you've got to call in your IT people to do it. If the backup for our cloud or for our Veeam doesn't work, they've got on-site people that they're monitoring those backups, and the backups will try run on several occasions. In the morning, I get a report to say, well, your first backup didn't work. Tried your second backup at 1 hour later, your third backup, and it was successful. They will answer questions to me as to what happened with my backup, and they'll give me secure information on that. So, and then, people ask as well for us, the setup in the cloud. Is it easy? Does it take long? How did you do it? What did you do? And it is literally like taking your server from the office and putting it into the cloud. We used our Syspro consultant and our IT consultant. They did a complete backup of our system, and they put our SQL server into the cloud. We continued to work while all of this was happening. We had no downtime. We continued to work, and once we switched over and made sure that everything was working 100% on the cloud, we had no downtime. We literally had no downtime. It also, putting it in the cloud, it frees up your office space. When I say it frees up office space, a lot of us have big server rooms because a server is not small. They're loud and they're cumbersome, and you need somebody with the right skill set to be able to maintain it, to understand it. Yes, we all have certain IT knowledge, but the way IT is moving in the current environment, it's moving so fast that what we know today has been upgraded tomorrow. And using somebody like Azure, Turco, or we use MIT support as well, which is outsourced IT support, is their knowledge is 100% up to date. And they've got a team behind them that can help you with things like that. You know, our IT guys, yes, they're fantastic. They know how to work the printer if it goes down, if your email, whatever, but they don't know everything. And they have to do a lot of training to keep themselves up to date. That costs money, number one. And your server will only last you for a certain period of time before you have to upgrade it again. And it's normally 5 years max you get out of it. Depending on where your company is going, maybe you didn't spec the server correctly in the first place, so it may not even last 5 years. So you can be never 100% sure on that. So that's why cloud for us was fantastic. We also moved to Office 365, also in the cloud. And that also was a very easy changeover for us. So, you know, we don't really want to talk about pandemics, and we've all just gone through a very, very crazy couple of months with the COVID-19 and what that's done to businesses and all of that. But cloud in the face of a pandemic was fantastic for us. Okay, so when I say was fantastic, we got notification from the government here in South Africa to say, well, as in from the end of March, 25th, 26th of March, we were on lockdown level 5. Everybody had to either work from home, or companies couldn't manufacture only if you were a required service, and everybody was in a flat panic. For us, having cloud, we literally could take our laptops, go home and work as if we were in the office. My whole admin team and my finance team, literally, we worked every single solitary day. We did not have any downtime. We took our laptops, we took our towers, everybody had a dongle with Wi-Fi, and we worked as if we were working in the office. We had meetings every day. We never had a problem. And our financial year end, and we are a listed company, which I have said a few times, I think, at this stage. We had our financial year end was in March. So we didn't get an extension on our research, and we were in audit as well. So our audit was done online, and we could provide all the information that we needed to provide because we had cloud services and we had 100% full access. We brought home files with us when we left, and we have our shared drive in the cloud as well, so we could access that for any information we wanted. We turned around and completed our financial year end without any hiccups, without any overruns, without any overtime. So that assisted us as well. Is it slow? Is it how's the uptime? How's the downtime? Using cloud, one of the questions I asked when we went to change over as well is it going to be slower? Now, because my server room is 2 doors down from me, surely my information is quicker coming from 2 doors down from me than coming from a server I have in the cloud that's based in Joburg. And I said, I can't afford to be sitting watching my computer go around, my little circle going round and round in my computer and waiting 10 minutes for a report to come back to me. And that wasn't the case, and that isn't the case. Using cloud and having my accounting system in the cloud, my reports are every bit as fast as if the server was sitting in the next room beside me. So it doesn't make it slow. The old servers, as they get older, become slower, become sluggish. And also, as you put more information on your server on site, it's now processing more, so it slows it down. Remember, in the cloud, you can ramp up to ensure that it doesn't slow your services down, that you've got enough processing and all of that. So that is, some of those advantages of having that. you know, you can, and Deirdre mentioned this in her speech as well, is you can scale up and down at any time. In the pandemic, a lot of people, you can say, please, I need to cut my services. It's cost saving, all of that. Now we're coming out of this pandemic, and you know, there may be other pandemics that we have to deal with. And this pandemic has made us all look at our working environment hugely. You know, how we can work out of office, how people can continue. But scaling up and down with cloud services is very, very easy. You give them notice, and you just tell them, you know, we're in this predicament, we're scaling down, I don't need as much space, please can you scale it down for me? So that is where we are with ours, and that was my journey and what I wanted to share with you. I see Deirdre's come back online, and I think we're running over time. So I'm going to cut off and see if there's any questions. But thanks for allowing me this time, and hopefully that'll help you understand a little bit more on the cloud and the journey.
Thanks, Virginia. That was very, very, very insightful. You know, what I think I love about just the way or the journey that you've been on is just how the cloud has brought simplicity to the business. And like you said, just no disruption at all. You can work anywhere, work at any time. And I think the one thing that you highlighted quite nicely as well during that discussion was just some of the unseen savings as a business that you've experienced, in the sense that, you know, people not having to come on site to do maintenance or assistance. We don't always see that cost saving, actually. It's an unseen cost in the sense that actually we can do a lot more things remotely, which when it comes to consulting services or it comes to technical debts, expenses in that regard, we actually do see a saving. It doesn't eliminate, but we do see savings coming in those areas, which is not always evidently visible when doing a cost calculation or an ROI. Virginia, there is just one quick question, and I know we're running out of time. We're actually over time already. So I just very, very quickly wanted to ask you. The question was, have you had any challenges in your cloud experience this far, or has it actually been pretty plain sailing?
For us, it's been pretty plain sailing, to be very honest. And that was one of my fears, is that this is new to a lot of us. It's you know, when it's on site, you can see it, you can see what it is. When it's not in your face, we have had, yes, we've had a few issues where, you know, something wouldn't print, or it's running a little slow. What's happening? You know, those kind of things. But that, because like I say, our IT people can log in, and the ease of access for our support to log in and see, why is it running slow? Is there something? Or even to reboot the server, you know, they can log in and that can be done within 5 minutes. You're not waiting for somebody to come on site and reboot it for you and make sure that it's shut down correctly before it can be rebooted. It's so we haven't had any major issues. They almost like handhold you through the process, you know, so they help you understand, you know, as whoever you're dealing with, you know, or what your service provider is. They will handhold you through the process and safeguard your information and all that. So we've been very lucky as that we haven't had any major issues at all.
Fantastic. Virginia, I just want to say thank you once again for your time today and really just sharing your journey with us. I think it's always interesting to hear firsthand from a business as to what the journey has looked like. And I just think, especially with your financial background, just really some of the benefits that you, even in the finance world, saw by shifting to the cloud. So thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it. I want to say thank you to everyone online. Perfect. And thank you to all our attendees. We're going to do one last quick poll before we close off today. So I'm just going to bring that poll up quickly. So based on some of the discussions we've had today, what do you think is more suitable for your business? Do you think a CapEx spend of IT is more suitable, an OpEx spend, or still not too sure? Let's just quickly get everyone answering those polls. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to finish off with some housekeeping and let everyone go. But thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Let's see the results of that poll. And looks like we've got quite a big encouragement. We are shifting to an OPEX spend for IT is definitely a lot more palatable or acceptable for business these days. So thank you, everyone. I just want to quickly remind everyone we have got 2 more episodes coming up. Our next episode is going to be on the 16th of September as part of our digital transformation series. This 3rd episode is going to focus on digitalization and driving automation, where once again, we will just be having some conversations around what are the use cases and some of the ways that we can drive automation. And in our last episode, which will be on the 30th of September, digital citizens or people too. The registration link is in the chat for the next session if you would like to register right now. Otherwise, a mail will also be coming through where you will have the option to register there too. Thanks again. We will be sending out the recording after today's session. And then just to quickly finish up, I was just waiting to find out who our Twitter King is. So I do know we have the Twitter King happening today. Sorry guys, the results are not quite in yet, but we will send out on the mailer. We'll let you know who the Twitter King was. Thank you for your participation. And really, once again, thanks everyone for the time. And we hope to see you on the next session on the 16th of September. As we close today's session, you will get a survey popping up, just asking on feedback of today's session. So please just take that 5 seconds just to let us know how you found today's session, and see you next time.